The next speaker is Dr. Ravi Kumar Alluri, other techniques to help cross the lesion, guide liner, body wire, body balloon, and anchor balloon.
Good afternoon, everyone. So, as we all know, getting across the stent is the most vital aspect and has been being discussed, and we observe it in about 5% of the PCIs, which when you have difficulty in tracking the stent across, probably you'll have suboptimal revascularization, which is associated with increased complications. Both poor as well as the long-term outcomes are very poor. Which are the situations where you have difficulty in delivering the stent? Probably when the vessel is too tortuous and when the lesion severity is very, basically you don't predilate and you take a lesion across a very tight lesion, which may be a calcific lesion or a very fibrotic lesion, then you try to take a stent across, you end up in problems. That is one of the situations. Then it also depends on the lesion length. When the length is more, and it's more importantly calcification in the vessel, as Dr. Punamia has been showing so much of calcific vessels and their successful results. And also it also depends on the stent length and also the structure of the stent, and importantly poor guiding catheter support when the root is dilated, and the takeoff, as Dr. Bhattacharya has been telling about. So majorly it is decided by three factors. When the backup is poor, it decreases the force that we can apply before the guide gets displaced, and tortuosity, which reduces the distal transmission of force and the friction between the stent and the vessel. So most often it is all the three that combine and make the situation difficult for us. Coming to the tips and tricks, guiding catheter has been discussed, deep setting the guiding, and the mother and child, which I will be talking about, and the wires, both vestibular support wires, body wires, gliding wire, which I'll just mention about. Most importantly, plaque modification, rotabulation, as has been shown, and using the cutting balloon and stent. Always try to use shorter length stents and more stents. The more flexible the stents are, the more easier it will be, and the crossing profile of the stents. Coming to the body wire, that is the most commonly used thing these days. Everyone has been used to it, and most of the times when we have difficulty in taking the stent across or even the balloon across, you put a body wire, and it's an effective method whereby the guiding catheter support is increased and the devices can be successfully delivered. Not only it improves the guide support, but also it will be effective by bouncing the stent off the superficial calcium when you take the stent on the body wire, thereby facilitating the delivery. So the guide wires which are used, extra support wires can be used, a wiggle wire which I will be talking about a little, and the hydrophilic wires, all these can be used as the body wires. There has been some case reports about this high torque wiggle wire, where you can see that the distal edge has corrugations or bends at the tip, and basically this helps in deflecting the proximal edge of the stent or the balloon away from the obstructing, that is whether it's a calcific lesion or the struts of the previously delivered stent. Okay. The technique using this wiggle wire is the crooked body technique, and what you do is, once you put the wire in there, you apply a slow traction on the wire so that the sinusoidal part, that's the corrugated part there, that's the sinusoidal part, you bring back the sinusoidal part of the wire into the tip of the device so that it alters the angle of contact between the tip of the stent and the vessel wall, and can allow the stent to be advanced farther down the artery and to the target site of deployment. But one important thing is the sinusoidal portion of the wire, it reduces the steerability, so that the advancing the wire to the distal portion of the target vessel will be a little difficult. So what you do is you use a microcatheter or over the wire balloon, and then take out the wire and put a wiggle wire. Coming to the gliding wire technique, it's just a variant of the body wire. You use a second hydrophilic wire here, so that the stent will glide over the hydrophilic coating of the second wire. And the anchor wire, as it's been talked about, it can be inserted in a non-target vessel or into the target vessel. Coming to the anchor balloon technique, way back in 2003, the Fujita has first reported a case, and it is an inflation of the balloon in the side branch of the target coronary vessel to facilitate equipment delivery to the target lesion. And this helps in stabilization of the guiding catheter and does by inflating a balloon in a non-target vessel. And coming to distal anchoring, a balloon is inflated either in the distal part of the lesion or just at the distal or the lesion, so that it enhances support for the equipment delivery. So I'll just show you the guide catheter extensions where we mother and child technique. There's what is the heart rail and the guide liner. Both this is the heart rail, where you can see the basic 6 French 7 French guiding catheter, and you put a heart rail catheter into it, and the rest of the things will be the same. And in the second picture you can see the heart rail that can be advanced into the target coronary vessel. And this is the guide liner, where you can see here the advantage of the guide liner is it is a over the wire exchange, and so that basically, and also there is a when you connect it, it is connected to the guide catheter, so that there is no air embolism here. So how does the guide catheter extension and all these help? It's by increasing the backup support, and the other thing is crossing across will be easier because they are more flexible than the stent, and the surface is also more smoother than the stent. So just some illustrations. Actually, you can see when you see this guide catheter across the lesion, both mid and distal lesions, and when you try to pass the wire or take the stent across, then you see the guiding catheter coming back. That is both the contact with the coronary ostium as well as the aorta, where the backup is mainly, it is lost. So when you put a guide extension catheter like the heart rail or the guide liner, you can modify the shape of the curve, shape of the catheter, so that you can amplitize the catheter into the coronary artery, and so then the stent can be taken easily. And another important utility of these guide catheter extensions is usually what we do is we start stenting from the distal vessel to the proximal segment. But here, because of the tortuosities and the complexity of it is maybe difficult. And when you use a guide catheter extension, you can always, without any hesitation, you can stent the proximal lesion and then take the guide catheter inside and then deliver the distal stent also. This is an example of that, where you have a proximal as well as a distal lesion. Because of the proximal lesion, the hooking the coronary artery dampens the pressure there and prevents the coronary intubation, where you have an insecure feeling that you might disrupt the plaque there, ending up in the dissection there into the aorta, which may extend into the aorta also. So here in this sort of a situation, what you do is you take an extension of the guide catheter, either the guide liner or the heart rail, then you can position and easily position it at the ostium without any damping there, and then you can deploy the stent there. Once the stent is deployed, then you can take guide extension catheter inside as far as almost to the mid and the distal RCA also, and you can track the stent across into the distal RCA segment, and you can deploy the stent there. And the other one is the distal anchor balloon technique, which is an extension of this. Actually, what you can do is alternative to this, the distal anchor balloon can be tried, where you can avoid stenting the proximal segment first, but you can just inflate the balloon at the distal segment, so that the guide catheter gets anchored and it gives more support there, and then you can take the stent across the lesion and first position the stent across the distal segment, and then once you position the distal stent, then you can get it back the guiding catheter, the guide catheter extension also, and position the proximal stent and deploy it. So both the guideline catheter as well as the heart rail, both are highly effective for balloon and stent delivery. The guide liner is more easier to use, and occasionally it can be used as a thrombectomy device also, and it's quite safe, so that the air embolism is not there. That's one advantage over the heart rail, and it makes difficult cases much easier, and some impossible cases also can be done, which is possible with this. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We'll have some questions for you just after a while. Dr. Punamiya has to go to that hall. So if you have questions for Dr. Punamiya, please ask them now. If you don't have any, I will ask him some questions. Any questions? Yeah.
Does not describe.
No, ask.
Yeah,
Questions
I'm
for him.
asking sir
Yeah.
only, like, he's just now described that we can either do a distal anchoring or a proximal. Like, how do we decide the proximal lesion first or the distal first? There are two lesions in the RCA which he just now showed.
No,
and two,
we will come to that later.
Okay,
We have
but-
just, his discussion is
I'll-
finished. You will ask him the question after you have finished asking him, because he has to leave.
So I
Just,
thought I'll
just give it 1 minute. Any questions regarding the Torner's device and the rotablator techniques that he showed you? Okay, I want to ask you that when you are doing acute myocardial infarction, and when do you decide that this patient, because you run the risk sometimes of dislodging thrombus and stuff like that. So when do you decide that, okay, this case, do you balloon first and see whether the balloon is behaving badly, or do you look at a lot of calcium, or it's elderly person with a STEMI and you have a feeling that it's going to be tough? When do you make that decision?
One thing that has changed in my practice is when I see a complex lesion in an acute MI where I see a lot of calcium, I look at it like a CTO. That means I take a fine cross microcatheter and I take a wire, I cross it, and if I cannot get my fine cross to cross it, if I can't get my smallest balloon to cross it, and if it doesn't go with the it goes with difficulty, I don't try to inflate it at all. I just go and I have a very low threshold to move to getting my rota wire down. And if my fine cross microcatheter can do that, then I'll just take my rota wire down. But if I cannot have my microcatheter going there, then I move to a tornus, get my rota wire down, do a rota. So failure to cross with a balloon or failure to cross with a microcatheter, and we do 100% IVUS in our patients. So if we cannot get our IVUS catheter to go across, then it's time to pull out a rotablator. Simple. We don't shy at all. Now we've got 21 cases of ST elevation myocardial infarction. And I didn't get a chance to show this, but even if you see a visible thrombus, it doesn't deter us from doing rotational atherectomy at all. I don't say everybody do it, but we've not shied away from it.
Any problems you have faced while doing trying rota? Any tips that any precautions you take?
We prepare a patient with the newer antiplatelet drugs and we give them a bolus of 2B3 blocker, and that's the small molecule. We make sure that we've got secure wire positions. We use 190,000 to 200,000 revolutions per minute of rotor speed. We use very short runs. In acute MI, the short runs are gone down to now 10 to 12 seconds, not 15 to 20 seconds. It's 10 to 12 seconds. And we try to keep, even if it's a large artery, what we do is we try to choose the smallest burr, which is around 1.25. Only in 2 cases, I think we've done 1.5, and that was because we had run out of the 1.25 burrs. But otherwise, 1.25 burr in these cases is good enough. And if the ablation time, the rotational time that required to cross the lesion is more than 8 minutes to 10 minutes, then we upscale the burr to either 1.75 or sometimes even a 2.0. Yeah. But we don't shy. Thrombus is not stopped, it's really.
Tornus and mine.
How are you using your Tornus device or catheter?
The Tornus device, you have to visualize, is a group of 8 to 10 wires which are braided across. So they're just wound upon each other and they're not bound by any silicone. So they're just wires which are twined around each other, okay, with a metallic bud at the top, at the leading edge. And so for the Tornus to work, you've got to anti-clockwise rotate a Tornus for around 20 to 30 turns, and then let it recoil and let the tension get off. And when you do that, the way it works is like how you drive a screw into a wall. You know, it has a pitch, and that pitch actually just threads into the wall. But you got to do it slowly, making sure that you're not unwinding this Tornus and you're not destroying the Tornus. As you increase the Tornus, as it goes into the lesion, the Tornus actually will start gripping the wire. So what is important is that every time you go forward, it is okay to get the Tornus back a little bit and do it again. So if you have a long lesion, you can go to the Tornus, go a little bit in, come back, go a little further, come back, go a little further, come back, because when you do that to and fro motion, it actually increases the play in the artery and your torus is not caught in there. I would avoid a torus in acute bends. That's where I feel the torus can be risky, because when you have an acute bend, you cannot transmit the same torque on the torus. But otherwise, you cannot take a torus out like you take microcatheters in and out. You cannot just inject, you cannot do the Manto technique, you cannot do that. So as I showed you, I take I use 7 French guides in all my patients. So we use a 2.5 balloon, we go and dilate the wire, we trap the wire in the guiding catheter, and then we move our torus back and forth after that. So those are the tips that I can tell you. But I mean, I wish next year maybe I could have a whole lecture on torus. We've used our use of torus is around 25% of our complex PCI. Yeah. No, see, because you're using a short wire, you're not using double length wires. So when you have got a torus inside, and now you want to remove the torus, you've got your normal wire inside, and now how do you take the torus out? If you had a microcatheter, you could just put a 2 cc syringe, inject it, and it flows out. If you take a Corsair, you could do it the same way. But a torus, you cannot do that. So once you get it into the guiding catheter, how do you pull it out? Because you lose wire position at the proximal end, right? So what you do is you take a parallel wire in a 7 French, take a balloon and dilate that balloon in the guiding catheter. So you trap your wire, so your wire position is not lost. And you just pull and yank out the torus. That's how we do it. Even when we advance the torus. Suppose we know that a microcatheter hasn't gone and now there's a wire position. We want to put a torus in. You first put a balloon inside, trap the wire. Because if you try putting the torus on the wire without the proximal end in your hand, you will penetrate that wire distally and you can cause a wire perforation. So you trap the wire, make sure the wire doesn't move anywhere, advance the torus through the balloon, deflate the balloon, get the tip of the proximal wire in your hand, and then go with the torus counterclockwise. So counterclockwise forward, clockwise backwards. Remember that. In a Corsair, you could do it one or the other. But in a torus, always counterclockwise forward and clockwise backwards.
Thank you very much. I think he has got to leave. He's got to lecture in the next hall, and you can catch up with him at lunch maybe. And questions for, yes.
Yeah, actually
you
it
were
depends
asking a
whether-
question to Dr. Adhuri. Yeah.
It depends whether you want to use the anchor balloon there. See, anchor balloon gives the advantage that you can avoid using the proximal stent first, because you can always advance the guide extension almost to the mid-RC and take the stent. Okay, so I mean, you're not damaging the proximal way, one thing, and also the chances of, very little chance of the stent getting deformed or anything is also not there. Okay, that is one thing. And with the anchor balloon in the distal lesion, target lesion, it will be fine. You can go ahead with that. But if somebody has difficulty, even with taking the, because of severity of the lesion, taking the, I mean, despite anchoring the balloon there, you have difficulty in taking the guide catheter extension down, then probably you better stent the proximal segment and then go down.